Quick test. It's your move you wish you could pass because every legal move makes your position worse. That's Zugzwang. Today, I've got 6 positions where the whole win is forcing the opponent to move. Position 1 is Smash versus Aaron Nimzowitsch from 1923. Smash is remembered for sharp ideas and for lending its name to the Smash variation, a very aggressive system players still use today. Nimzowitsch shaped modern positional chess. He pushed hypermodern ideas and gave us concepts like prophylaxis, restriction, plus his classic book, My System. Zugzwang is usually quiet. No fireworks, no tactics flying. It's about removing useful moves. Pause the video, it's black to play. Find the move that puts white in Zugzwang or forces white to create weakness. Alright, the key move here is h6. This is what Nimzowitsch played and white simply resigned the game. Because he has no moves to make. Let's assume he play king h2. It looks a normal move. Nothing is happening and everything is fine. But he has put his bishop into a pin and now black will simply win the game after rook f5-3. That's it. He's attacking the queen, he's attacking the pawn, and this pawn attacked twice. And white is lost here. His queen is trapped. He can't do anything about it. The best he has here is simply just give up a queen for a rook and just lost the game. So that means he can't move the king. Let's see the other options white is having. Okay, so he can't move the bishop back because the knight would hang. So bishop cannot be moved, king cannot be moved. And he can't move the rook as well because it's having only one option, but that option is defended already 3 times. So that is not an option. Let's assume he move his rook to d1. He lost after rook e2. The queen is trapped. Queen is having no option to escape and he lost a queen. So that means he can't even use his e rook. He's left with only pawn moves. So let's say he play g4 here. g4 lost, again to the same idea, which is rook f3. And it looks like this time bishop is not pinned, so bishop can capture it. Unfortunately, if bishop captures, that is a checkmate in one with the help of bishop and rook. So that means he can't even use the pawn. That is why after h6, he simply resigned the game. Because whatever moves he play, he's gonna lose the game terribly. So Zugzwang is basically you improve your position while deleting their options. Hello everyone, I'm Aniket, an Arena International Master, and this is Chess Tactics Episode 9. This series is focused on practical patterns that win games, not fancy puzzles. Zugzwang means compulsion to move. The site to move is worse because every move makes their position worse. Let's see an example to make it understand better. Here we got this position where white is completely winning. Obviously, it's a checkmate in 2. So we are going to use Zugzwang to checkmate the black king in 2 moves. And here the move is rook d6, cutting off black king's option. And now black is left with only one move, which is king b8. And whenever you move the king to b8, rook d8 will be simple checkmate. Obviously, there are multiple ways to win this position. And it's not about how to checkmate with rook. We are learning how to use Zugzwang. If this is the kind of training you want, subscribe. I upload practical chess lessons like this regularly, and the goal is to make you win more games. Now, let's go to position 2. Position 2 is Nikolic versus Ivanchuk from European Championship Antalya 2004. Nikolic is known for elite level defense technique and endgame resilience. He is the kind of player who is very hard to break down. Ivanchuk is one of the greatest players never to become world champion. Unpredictable, deeply creative, and he has beaten basically everyone. This is a kind of Zugzwang where everything looks fine, but one side is actually frozen. Find the move that restricts first. Do not hunt a win immediately. Look for a move that removes their useful moves. It's black to play. Okay, before the move, let's understand what's happening. So this rook is putting a pressure on the other rooks. The knights are protecting each other, and this bishop is also putting a pressure on c3 along with the other rook. White king is not safe, it's in open, and this rook is protected by the knight, and this knight is on outpost. That means there's no pawn who can kick the knight from there. And here, in this position, black played e3, and here white resigned the game. Point is, he cannot make a single move which can help him to achieve something. So this rook is attacking on e4. That means he cannot move the c3 knight because if c3 knight moves, he will simply lose the e4 knight and he will lose the game. So that means he can't move the knight. And he also cannot move e4 knight because this knight is already attacked 3 times. And if this knight will move, it will only be protected by the 2 rooks and he will lose the knight. That simply means he cannot move any of the knights. And he can't even move the king. Because if he moves the king anywhere, doesn't matter. For example, to f2, he is attacking the rook. This move will lose to knight takes d for check. Ivanchuk simply gained a pawn, and whenever he'll just move the king, maybe like to g1, you will start playing f5, and you have forced this knight to move, and you will win the knight here, and you will win the game. That's why he can't even move the king. So his king is stuck, his knights are stuck. Let's see if he can move the rook. Let's say he decided to move the rook and he played rook d1, covering the whole d file, and maybe he can do some damage. He lost the knight on e4. Rook takes e4, simple. Because now that's a pin. If knight takes the rook, he'll simply win the rook with a check and he is completely winning. So that simply means he cannot move the knights, he cannot move the rooks, pawns are already blocked, and he is out of moves. And that is why black played rook e3 and white resigned the game instantly. In Zugzwang positions, the winning move is often a restriction move. Now, let's go to the next one. Position 3 is Steinitz versus Lasker from World Championship rematch, Moscow 1896. Steinitz was the first world champion. He introduced the core idea that attacks work best after you build positional advantage. Lasker was the second world champion. He held the title for 27 years, the longest reign ever. Pause your video here and find how black forces white into a move they don't want to play. Look for opposition ideas, key squares, and pawn moves that become weaknesses. Okay, so let's understand the position in deep first before we reveal the move. This bishop on c6 and the queen on d5 is putting a pressure on g2 and h1. So that is why the queen has to stay to protect g2 and the rook has to stay to protect on h1. So that means the pieces cannot move. So queen also have to defend the bishop. That simply means queen is overload. And this rook has to also protect the pawn on f5. That means rook is also overload, protecting the f5 rook and h1 at the same time. And all the pawns are blocked and king is having no options to escape. So here, black played a move which is rook g8. And here he froze the whole position. Now queen has to guard bishop and on g2 at the same time, which is very hard for the queen. Here, white continue with the best idea possible in this position, which is rook e1. But as he moved the rook, he lost a control of f3 and f5 at the same time. Black continued the game with queen takes f5. White played rook e5, attacking on the queen and hoping for something better. And now white played queen f3. His idea is queen h1 is coming. And now white has to do something. And white played d5, closing the bishop simply. And this pawn cannot be captured because it is protected twice. Here, black continued the game with queen g3 check. King is having only one option, king h1, and he simply captured the rook on e5. And after d takes c6 with check, he played king takes c6, and here white resigned the game. It all started with this position where black played a simple move rook g8. It looks like that it does nothing, but still it frees the whole position. This is classic endgame Zugzwang. Now let's go to the next one. If you're serious about improving and want structured training instead of random puzzles, I work with students personally. The link to train with me is in description. Now let's continue. Position 4 is Lasker versus Capablanca from Moscow 1936. Lasker, the second world champion, was the problem solver at the board. He found practical resources in positions other players would just accept. Capablanca was the third world champion, famous for clean technique and converting small advantages with almost no mistake. This is a technical zugzwang. Find the move that makes the opponent run out of useful moves. So pause your video and find the best move for black to continue the game. In this position, Capablanca played h6, simply moving a pawn, asking what white is gonna play now. And believe me or not, but white is already out of moves. Okay, let's analyze it deeply. So this knight cannot be moved because knight has to protect f1 and e2 because bishop is also covering it. So it might make some threats which could lead to checkmate. So knight cannot be moved. This queen cannot be moved as well because queen has to protect c2. So queen is stuck, knight is stuck. Yes, he has one move. He can play h3, but black will again waste the move, and black would play king h7. And that's it. He has no other moves. King is stuck, and all the other pieces are stuck. So what Lasker decided to do in this position was he played b3, simply giving up a pawn and hope for something. Obviously, black capture a free pawn, a takes b3, c takes b3, and bishop takes b3. And here he got an extra pawn, and eventually, after a few moves, black easily won the game. In technical Zugzwang, threat is not mate. The threat is losing structure and squares. Now, let's go to the next one. Position 5 is Alexander Alekhine versus Aaron Nimzowitsch from San Remo 1930. Alekhine was the fourth world champion and one of the most dangerous attacking players ever, with brutal calculation. Nimzowitsch again is the restriction master. He loved positions where the opponent slowly runs out of moves, but this time Alekhine did to him. So pause your video here and find the best move for white. And here, in this position, Alekhine played h4. And that's it. Black simply resigned the game. The point is, black cannot move anything. He can't move the king because if he moves the king, simply b5 wins the game. He can't move the knight because the rook is attacked 3 times. It's only protected 2 times, so he's gonna lose a rook or the knight and he's gonna lose the game. So he can't move the king now. And he can't even move the knight anywhere. If he try to move this knight to g6, he will lose this knight. So that means knight cannot be moved. And if you try to move the knight to b4 here, just simply capture and it looks fine. There should be no problem. He lost a queen. So that means he can't move the knights, he can't move the king, and obviously he can't move the queen as well because b5 is coming. And same problem with the rooks. He cannot move all the pieces. He has everything, but each and every piece is just so stuck, he can't even make a move. He can play g6 because it does nothing. But then, okay, you can play king h2. And yes, he will be having no move super. He can play h5 and that's it. He's out of moves and even king g3 or any other move which just simply win. Because now his each and every piece is stuck. Whatever he moves, he's gonna lose. So that is why after h4, black simply resigned the game. Zugzwang is often reward for patience. You win because they cannot improve. Now, let's go to the next one. Position 6 is Pillsbury versus Marshall from 1901. Pillsbury was one of the brightest American talents ever, famous for his attacking feel and his legendary tournament win at Hastings 1895. Marshall was one of the long-time backbone of American chess, US champion for decades, and the creator of the martial attack, one of the most famous ideas in the royal base. So pause your video here and find the best move for white. In this position, white played pawn to g3, simply playing a pawn move, and in this position, Marshall resigned the game because he can clearly see he cannot move a single piece which help him to achieve something. If he tried to move the king on g8 or h8, they simply lost to bishop takes g6 check and it will simply lead to checkmate in the next move. So that is why his king is stuck and he cannot move. Let's try to move the knight. So if we try to move the knight to e7, it looks fine, like it's awesome. He will lose to rook a7. So now either rook takes, and after b takes a7, there's a queen coming on a8, and there's no way to save it, or rook will simply move to b8, and then he will lose the knight, and obviously b7, and eventually he will make a queen, and he will win the game. So that means knight cannot be moved as well. And if knight cannot move, the h6 rook is already trapped, and it has no chance to move it anyway soon. He's having only one rook left. Let's see if he can move it. And this bishop pair is making sure the rook cannot go anywhere else. So this rook is trapped. So both of the rooks are trapped. Knight can't move, king can't move. He's out of moves. So whatever he does, he's gonna lose the game terribly. And Marshall can clearly see that, and that is why after g3, Marshall simply resigned the game. So that's Zugzwang. The opponent is not losing because you check them or won a tactic immediately. They are losing because they run out of useful moves. Three signs to look for. They have no safe waiting move. Their pieces are tied down to defense. Pawn move create weaknesses, or they are out of pawn moves. If you want more tactics that actually show up in the real games, subscribe. That's exactly what this series is built for. Now, comment which one was the hardest and tell me what move you found before I revealed it. I will see you in the next one.